So I'm going to be preparing for you Gillie's tuna rice with green beans today. It's a very dear friend of mine who shared this recipe with me. I'm going to share it with you. It's quick, it's easy, and we mums, we all like quick recipes. We don't have so much time to waste in the kitchen. So we're going to start with the tuna. You want to use 160 grams of tuna, 2 small tins or just 1 large tin. And the trick is, that makes this recipe so nice, is to basically use the oil from the tuna. You don't need to use extra olive oil. It gives the tuna a nice flavour, and since we're not adding any spices or salt, it helps a great deal.
The guidance for the 4 to 6 year olds is just 3 grams of salt a day. That's half of the adult dose. If the diet's too high in salt, there's a real risk of incidence of strokes and high blood pressure. We don't want our children to be running around with high blood pressure. Salt is naturally occurring in lots of foods, and you can't avoid it. So the best way to control it is don't add it onto foods and don't cook with it. Just use what's natural in the products.
We're going to use green beans, but you can actually do this recipe with broccoli. It works really nicely. And if you want to use fresh beans, you can. You just need to steam them first for about 7 minutes. So we will start with some garlic, which we just mix in with the oil. And you just crush it. You don't want to let it brown or burn. You just basically want to saute it so it simmers very gently. It gives the oil a nice garlicky flavour. So just crush your garlic into the oil. It's on a very low heat. As I said, you don't want it to brown. You're probably going to use, for that amount of tuna, you're probably going to use between 2 and 4 garlic cloves. Depends how garlicky you want it. And you just let the garlic slowly simmer away. Just mix it, as I said, not too high. So we're going to use 1 cup of rice. It's quite funny, I never used to use rice. I used to be terrified to use rice. I used to stick to the boil in the bag version, but actually someone showed me how to do it, and it's really not difficult to cook rice. You just use twice the volume of water to the rice. So I used 1 cup of rice, so I'm going to use 2 cups of water. And then you just let your rice boil away. But as per the time on the packet instructions, normally about 11 minutes. I'm using basmati here. And again, you don't want the heat too high. Add your beans. That's about 1 tin, 400-gram tin of beans. But as I said, you can use fresh. I mean, it's just easier to use green beans from a tin because if you happen to have them in the larder, you don't have to think about having anything fresh at home. You just let those simmer away with the garlic. You're cooking the tuna and the beans and the garlic while the rice is cooking, so the whole thing should take you about 10 minutes, which, as I said, is great, because if you suddenly come home from the park late and you've only got 10 minutes to make your kids' dinner, well, you've got a recipe for 10 minutes. I don't use any salt or pepper in this recipe, so if you are doing it for all of the family, you guys, us big people might want to add salt and pepper, but actually it tastes really good without it, so it's not a necessity. So once it starts to bubble away, just add your tuna. And you let this just slowly cook.
The children should be getting good sources of salmon and tuna and cod. And again, the variety is important. Excellent source of protein, excellent source of iodine.
You could also do this recipe with broccoli. I normally tend to steam vegetables, so I would suggest you steam the broccoli for about 6 minutes. You don't want to overcook it because it's going to cook a bit more in this way. And you would add the broccoli in the same way as you would add the beans. And how are we doing? The rice is boiling away nicely. So let's just check this again. Most of the water's nearly disappeared. We're nearly done. There's a funny thing with rice. Whenever you cook it, the same thing never happens twice. So even if there's still lots of water left at the bottom, it might be ready. Doesn't matter. Just put it in a sieve and drain it with boiling water. And that's why actually I discovered cooking it was so easy. I thought you had to do it just perfectly, and if you put just a bit too much water, it would be a disaster, but actually it doesn't. It's not true. It's not a mystery. Okay, so we're nearly there. Okay, take a sieve, over to the sink. And there's some stuck in the bottom, so we're just going to use a fork because it doesn't break the rice pieces up. Take some boiling water. And just rinse the rice through really well to make sure you've got all the starch out and it's not sticky. And then just give it a good shake. And then you just add it to your tuna and your green beans. So that was 1 cup of rice, which didn't look very much to start with. But actually, it's gone a very long way, and it tends to double in size, a bit like pasta. So what didn't look very much to start with, I would say that's a good 2 adult portion, 2 to 3, depending how hungry you are. And certainly for the children, that would feed 3 to 4.
The tuna rice and green bean recipe is an excellent example of a quick, simple meal to put together. The rice is the starchy portion, you've got your vegetables with your beans, and you've got your tuna as your protein portion. So lovely balance there.
Just put that into a serving bowl. You could reheat it in the oven, but actually it's just quicker to do it in a frying pan because it takes 3 minutes. And there we have a tuna rice, Gillie's tuna rice. And thanks to Gillie for the recipe, which is fantastic.